our stories and how we imagine other people, and also how we imagine ourselves. Because what we imagine, not always, but sometimes, has a funny habit of becoming real. And so that's why Radar's parents, I mean, Radar doesn't like it, and I don't blame him, I probably wouldn't like it either, but Radar's parents are trying to get us to complexify the way we think about Santa. That's funny, but it's also serious. I mean, the symbol there is hopefully a serious one, and this is one that comes up again and again and again in the book, which is that when we imagine our stories or other people too simply, too narrowly, what we end up doing is we end up dehumanizing them, and we end up not thinking that they're people in the same way that we are people, and we end up not being able to come together, but instead being divided. I think that this is one of the central problems that we face as human beings, is that we're stuck inside of these skin-encased enclosures that we can never get out of. I can never see out of any eyes but my own. I can never have any consciousness except for my own. And that makes it really, really hard for me to imagine what it's like to be you, or to imagine what it's like to be anyone in this room. And that is our challenge, is to think about one another as complexly and as compassionately and as nicely as we think about ourselves. And that's the challenge in Paper Towns, but I think it's also the challenge that we all face. And nerds know better than anyone what it's like to be on the outside of that, what it's like to be imagined wrongly, what it's like when people don't take us seriously, when people don't acknowledge the reality of our feelings, the reality of our experience, don't acknowledge us as fully human. But I would say, even when people don't acknowledge us as fully human, it is still our responsibility to acknowledge them that way. And that's hard, but it's important, I think. It's dangerous not to. That's my spiel.
Yay!
Oh, now we're going to have a question period. Question period. Hank will hold the mic very far away from his face. Yeah, because they can hear you fine. Oh, we can probably hear us without mics. Okay, so Hank's going to call on one questioner, then I'm going to call on the other questioner. I'm going to start you.
When you finish the book, it kind of leaves it on this hanging ending and kind of what happens to the characters.
Yeah.
So I'd kind of like to hear from you what happens to Martin.
I don't know. People always ask me that question about the end of my books, like they asked me that question about Alaska too, which we cannot talk about because we don't want to spoil it. But yeah, I really don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like you know literally just as much as I do because we are working with the same text. But I don't know. I mean, I would like to think that that life is a sine curve, and people who are out of your life come back into your life, and people who are into your life leave. But I also know, as a result of being an adult, that life is often not a sine curve. It's like this. That's the shape of life sometimes. Oh, I'm sorry, no, your turn.
My foot is
Lower, much lower. Much lower, like there.
I've had my foot for a very long time.
Okay.
Right here in the front.
We were wondering why you took 10 extra minutes, like, before you came. We wanted to know what Thanksgiving was tonight.
It was turkey on Havarti.
It was a really good, it was one of the best sandwiches I've ever eaten in my life. What was it called?
This place?
Central Market.
Central Market. Oh, man. That's been serious. That was delicious.
Yeah.
Well, I get my turn now. A lot, and it's still a lot of people. There's still a lot of people that I look up to a lot and that I think about a lot when I'm writing. But I mean, I would say, obviously, like I'm not as good as any of these people, and I should preface my answer by saying that I'm not nearly as good as any of them. But I'm very influenced by J.D. Salinger, like a lot of writers I know who write about teenagers, and I'm very influenced by Mark Twain when I try to think about how to be funny while simultaneously being serious. And there's a Southern writer named Robert Penn Warren who wrote a novel called All the King's Men that I read every time before I start a book. So those would be the three first ones that would come to mind.
Green shirt.
Is there a place where we can send stuff that we write to you guys?
There is.
Well, if like written down.
Yeah,
The question is if there's a place they can send stuff that people can send stuff they write us. Is it like written down or typed?
We just got a Nerfighters P.O. box. It hasn't, the address of it has not yet been published, but
I didn't even know about it until
I can't remember the zip code. I can remember the address. It's 7611 P.O. Box 761, Missoula, Montana 59807, I think. But don't take my word for it.
Why don't we just publish that on the internet?
Yeah.
Most of these people seem to have internet access.
I think so, yeah.
Yes.
I was just wondering, like, you're all like on the internet and stuff. Are you ever worried about people personalizing your books for you, like hearing it in your voice?
That's a very good question. Am I worried about people personalizing my books toward me and hearing it in my own voice? Which I thought Sean touched on in an interesting way. Like, how do you do it so that it feels like a friend is telling you a story, and hopefully a good story and a complex story, but at the same time not have the story call attention to the fact that it was written by me, and like not draw you out of the narrative and be like, oh, John Green made that. Because I don't want that to happen. I want you to be into the story enough that you're not conscious of the fact that it was made by anyone, and instead you're thinking about the story as a story. That is a challenge that, to be honest, I have not quite figured out what I think about it or how to deal with it, but I'm trying. I'm conscious of it, and I'm trying to be more conscious of it as I go along. And yes, this is not a construction. Like, I really do this.